Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Before we begin, I want you to know that you will occasionally see me looking down at my notes. That's intentional. Normally, when I create videos like this, I speak from memory, but today is different. This is an ongoing investigation involving the death of a young man, and I want to be as accurate and responsible as possible. Rather than relying on memory, I'll be referring to my notes so that I don't unintentionally misstate anything that was publicly shared. I also want to make something else clear from the very beginning. Today's update is based on two public sources. First, I watched the press conference held by the NAACP on behalf of Nolan Wells' family. During that press conference, the family's lead attorney presented findings from Dr. Roger Mitchell's independent autopsy. After that press conference ended, I watched Don Lemon's discussion with attorney Monique and physician Dr. Frieda, who helped explain the legal and medical significance of what had just been presented. Throughout this video, I'll do my best to distinguish between the findings presented from Dr. Mitchell's independent autopsy, the comments made during the family's press conference, and the expert analysis that followed. My goal isn't to tell anyone what happened to Nolan Wells. My goal is simply to summarize what has been publicly shared, separate confirmed findings from unanswered questions, and avoid adding speculation. It's also important to remember that the state's investigation is still ongoing, and the final determination regarding Nolan's cause and manner of death has not yet been publicly released. With that said, let's begin. According to the findings presented during today's press conference from Dr. Roger Mitchell's independent autopsy, both the cause of death and the manner of death remain undetermined. I want to pause there for just a moment because those two words are important. Undetermined does not automatically point to one conclusion or another. It doesn't confirm foul play. It doesn't confirm an accident. It simply means that based on the information available during the independent examination, there was not enough evidence to determine exactly how Nolan died. Another important fact shared during the press conference was that Dr. Mitchell conducted the independent or second autopsy, not the original examination. That matters because it also meant there were limitations to what he was able to examine. One of the findings that received considerate attention involved an area of red discoloration in the soft tissue on the back of Nolan's head. According to the findings presented during the press conference, this area measured approximately 12 by 8 centimeters. The report indicated that this finding was significant because the exact cause of the discoloration could not be determined during the independent examination. At the same time, no conclusion was made that it resulted from blunt force trauma. No conclusion was made that it resulted from another specific cause either. Instead, it remained one of the several unanswered questions. Another point discussed during the press conference involved portions of the anterior neck that were not available during the independent examination. According to the findings presented, Dr. Mitchell explained that in his own experience as a medical examiner, retaining those structures for additional examination can be part of the normal forensic process while an investigation is still underway. He also explained why those structures are important. The neck can sometimes provide valuable forensic information that can help investigators better understand how a person died. Because those structures were not available during the independent examination, there were questions that could not be answered during the independent autopsy. Again, that's an important distinction. It does not mean conclusions were reached. It means there are questions that remained unanswered. The findings presented during the press conference also indicated that no skull fractures were identified during the independent examination. Throughout the presentation, one thing stood out to me. The findings were careful, measured, and very clear about the difference between what could be determined and what could not. Personally, I appreciated that approach. It's easy during a high-profile case for people to feel pressure to provide immediate answers. But from everything that was presented during today's press conference, there was a consistent effort to avoid drawing conclusions that the available evidence could not yet support. And in my opinion, that's exactly how it should be. At this point, the independent autopsy has given the public additional information, but it has not answered every question surrounding Nolan Wells' death. And that's where the conversation continued after the press conference. After the press conference ended, I wanted to better understand what had just been presented. So instead of immediately recording this video, I spent some additional time listening to legal and medical experts discuss the findings. I watched Don Lemon's conversation with attorney Monique and physician Dr. Frida. Neither of them announced new findings from the investigation. Instead, they helped explain what had been presented during the family's press conference, what could reasonably be concluded from those findings, and what questions still remain unanswered. Before I continue, I'd like to share one personal observation. Almost immediately after the press conference, I began seeing headlines and social media videos summarizing what had happened. One video that was forwarded to me claimed that independent autopsy was undetermined because Nolan's body parts were missing. My first reaction was emotional. But before I formed an opinion or shared one publicly, I decided to wait. I wanted to hear the full discussion. I wanted to understand the medical explanation. I wanted to understand the legal process, and I'm glad I waited. That experience reminded me of something that's true not only in this case, but in many areas of life. Context matters. The headline doesn't always tell the whole story. A short video doesn't always provide the complete picture. Sometimes the most responsible thing we can do is pause, gather more information, and allow the evidence, not our assumptions, to shape our understanding. That's exactly what I hope this video does. During Don Lemon's discussion, attorney Monique focused primarily on explaining the legal process and addressing some of the misunderstandings that have been circulating online. One point she made that stood out to me was the importance of using accurate language when discussing an ongoing investigation. She explained that some of the wording being used on social media has unintentionally created confusion about the autopsy process. She also explained that retaining certain organs or tissues while additional forensic testing is underway can be a normal part of an ongoing medical examination. That doesn't automatically suggest wrongdoing. It means the examination is still in progress. Attorney Monique also reminded viewers that the state's investigation has not yet been completed. Additional testing, including toxicology, may still take weeks or even months before investigators are able to reach a final determination. Dr. Frida then approached the discussion from a medical perspective. What I appreciated most was that she consistently separated medical possibilities from medical conclusions. She discussed why the findings involving the back of Nolan's head raised important medical questions. She also explained why the examination of the neck could potentially provide valuable forensic information once the state's examination is complete. But throughout her discussion, she repeatedly emphasized that these were questions, not conclusions. That distinction matters. Possibilities are not proof. Questions are not evidence. And unanswered questions should never be presented as established facts. After listening to both discussions, I found myself coming back to one simple thought. We still have more questions than answers. Some of those questions include, was Nolan conscious when he entered the water? Was he unconscious? Did he enter the water voluntarily, or was he forced into the water? What will the toxicology testing reveal? What additional information, if any, will come from the state's ongoing examination? And ultimately, will the final findings answer the questions that Nolan's family and so many others continue to ask? As of today, those questions remain unanswered. And until more verified information becomes public, I believe it's important that we acknowledge the difference between what we know, what experts are still examining, and what simply has not yet been determined. As difficult as it may be, investigations like this often require patience. Evidence has to be examined carefully. Laboratory testings has to be completed. Investigators have to follow the evidence wherever it leads. That process can take weeks. Sometimes it can take months. Waiting can be frustrating, especially when the family is grieving and the community wants answers. But taking the time to get the answers right is far better than rushing to conclusions that the evidence may not support. If there's one message I hope you take away from today's update, it's this. The independent autopsy gave us additional information. The discussion that followed helped us better understand that information, but neither provided all the answers, and that's okay. Sometimes the most honest answer is, we don't know yet. Those 4 words may not satisfy our curiosity, but they do honor the truth. As someone who has followed this case from the beginning, I believe the most responsible thing we can do is remain patient, continue asking thoughtful questions, and allow the evidence, not assumptions, to guide our understanding. Nolan's family deserves answers. The community deserves transparency. And Nolan himself deserves a thorough, complete, and unbiased investigation. Until that investigation is complete, I believe we honor both Noah and his family by resisting the temptation to fill in the gaps with speculation. Truth doesn't become stronger because it's repeated. Truth becomes stronger because it's supported by evidence. As additional verified information becomes publicly available, I'll continue sharing factual updates while doing my best to distinguish between confirmed information, expert interpretation, and unanswered questions. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you found this update helpful, I encourage you to share it with others who are trying to understand where the investigation stands. My hope is that this video contributes more clarity than confusion, more understanding than speculation, and more patience than premature conclusions. Thank you again for spending these moments with me. For Nolan, may the truth come to light. And as always, let's continue to speak truth with patience, compassion, and respect.